Good evening, everybody. Today is Friday, September 22nd. It is currently 6:04 p.m. Central. It is officially the weekend as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, today's pretty much just been a really chill day. I did my schoolwork, I did the dishes, which I didn't want to do, but they needed to be done because, when you're living in a house with 6 people, silverware disappears very quickly. I don't know how it is in everyone else's household, but it seems like when there's just more than myself, my husband, and our daughter under a roof in a household, I find that silverware disappears very quickly. And if not the silverware, so like the butter knives, forks, spoons, then the steak knives will start disappearing. So yeah, I did dishes right down to the stuff that my mother-in-law stashes in the oven. So basically, like, say she makes bacon and eggs for breakfast one morning. Instead of waiting for the grease to solidify and then scraping it into the trash can or into her bacon grease collection jar because she started saving it for what? I don't know. She's been putting them in the oven. So unless the oven is being used as a cooking device, it doubles as like a storage space, which for our kitchen, the way it's laid out with this house, there is not much of anything for a counter space. We have one true counter that literally, if you walk into my kitchen and you're standing at the counter, if you look at the counter from the left side to the right, following it all the way down, here's what's on the countertop. So she has a stash of cookbooks, and these are just those little spiral bound paperback cookbooks. She has a stand that has 2 bowls in it, so like fruit bowls. She then has her canisters, which it's sugar, flour, and I forgot what the other one is. I think it's like supposed to be like brown sugar or something. Sorry y'all, I'm kind of itching. And then next to that there's the microwave, and then next to the microwave is my Keurig, and then next to the Keurig is like a little Keurig pod station, so it's like a pull-out drawer, wire drawer, and it literally holds all of the pods for the Keurig, or most of them. So the tail end of the countertop by the back door is a coffee bar, essentially, because it's got the Keurig, and then there's the coffee pod holder, and then there is like a table lamp. Sorry, I pushed my glasses up. There's like a table lamp in between the Keurig and the coffee pods, and then sitting on top of the thing that is holding the coffee pods, there's an actual coffee pot and a sugar dish. And then my daughter had, and I think to an extent still has, a water bottle obsession. So when we lived in North Carolina, my stepmother bought her a Snoopy water bottle. Well, she hasn't drank out of that thing in I don't know how long, so I just use the water bottle itself. Like, I'll fill the water bottle up with water, and then I'll use that to fill up the Keurig in the morning. So that's what's sitting over there and on that countertop. And then behind me, when you're standing at the counter, so between that counter and the fridge, and look who just pulled in. Sorry, y'all. Give me 1 second, you guys. There's a story I want to tell with this. So behind that countertop is my mother-in-law's boyfriend's. Is my mother-in-law's boyfriend's. I think it's supposed to be like a butcher block countertop thingamabob, what have you. It has 2 drawers for storage on the other side of it, and then underneath it is where they keep like the extra toaster, the panini maker, the waffle iron, the griddle, and a pizza spinner, because, you know, my father-in-law, when he was alive, had to have every specialty appliance known to man. You couldn't just grab a pizza, pop it on a pizza pan, and stick it in the oven. No. He needed every appliance known to man. So that's what's all under that mess. And then on top of it is a paper towel holder, which doesn't have any paper towels on it. A napkin holder, which doesn't have any napkins in it. What I think was at one point originally supposed to be a cookie jar, but it's just being used to hold extra kitchen utensils. And then my knife block. I say my knife block because it was the knife block that my husband and I purchased. When we were living in De Pere. And then next to that knife block, there is a Pioneer Woman inspired potato bin, which reminds me I have to have my husband look in that bin and check to see if those potatoes are still any good. But that is it for counter space. And then there's like a window. There's a chair sitting next to the bar countertop thing in between that and the fridge. And then there's the window. And then the refrigerator. And then next to the refrigerator, on the far side, if I'm staring at the fridge, it's on the right side of the fridge. So to the right of the fridge is the kitchen sink, which it's a porcelain sink. That's it. Porcelain sink and a plastic dish strainer. And then next on the right-hand side of the sink, right next to the sink, I don't know why they thought that would be a good spot for it, for this house, but next to the sink in the kitchen, in the corner, is the water heater. And then when you're looking at the water heat, when your back is to the window and you're looking at the water heater, right in between, so next to the water heater is another like wire metal shelf thing, and she's got like on the one shelf on the bottom, it's got extra, like, plastic cutlery and cookie cutters and extra ice cube trays. Not that anybody uses ice here, but, you know. And then above that is water bottle central, and I say that because the only thing on that shelf is water bottles of various sizes and textures and materials. And then above that is pot holder central, because that's where, for whatever reason, that's where all of the pot holders and trivets are stored. And then above that is all of, like, your saran wrap, your plastic storage baggies, your plastic wrap, your press and seal, things like. Oh, there's a hole in my jammies, and these aren't very old. Oh well. And then above that, okay, so it looks like it was, you know how in the dishwasher there's that 4-compartment utensil holder? Yeah. So it looks like they took that and they turned it into a spare utensil holder. And then, of course, right next to that, on the right-hand side of that, is the stove. So I essentially spent my day cleaning that space up, with the exception of washing the butcher block cutting board and scraping out and washing the casserole dish that my mother-in-law made a strawberry cobbler, or what she was calling a cobbler, but I don't think it was a cobbler. It looked like more like a custard consistency. But yeah, I washed everything. And when I do dishes, okay, this is what I did. Okay, so I would do, typically growing up, when I was taught to do dishes, I was taught to do them in a very specific order. It went utensils and anything that touched your mouth got washed first. So utensils and cups or glasses. And then plates and bowls, and then pots and pans. Well, I kind of did that a little bit out of order. I washed the stuff on the stove first, with the exception of the strawberry cobbler pan and baking sheet. And then I washed whatever was dirty that was being stored in the oven. And then I washed the cups and the bowls and the rest of the silverware. Mind you, I would allow myself 25 minutes in between getting a load wash, because I don't like, and I told my mother-in-law, I said, I don't want your boyfriend doing dishes anymore. Because your boyfriend does not know how to clean dishes to where they're clean. And I discovered when he does dishes, okay, remember I told you in a few videos back that right after my husband and daughter and I arrived here in Kentucky, my mother-in-law took off to Florida to go clean the house of a woman she'd never met. Well, because this woman was a hoarder, and I guess her kids were threatening to call the state on her because her house was so jam-packed. My mother-in-law brought home a bunch of stuff from this lady. Okay? For all intents and purposes, I honestly believe my mother-in-law stole this lady's belongings and brought them home for us to use. And among some of the stuff she brought home were these 32-ounce plastic, and I mean heavy-duty, durable plastic, not cheapo, flimsy it's going to melt if it's left out in the sun. No. I mean, heavy duty, rock hard. You could hit, if you threw it hard enough, you could really do some damage. Plastic cups, and they're like 32 ounces. So when my mother-in-law's boyfriend attempts to do dishes, he uses those cups, and instead of, he'll wash the cup, and instead of putting it upside down so that the water drains out of it and it dries, he leaves it right side up, and he uses it as a utensil drainer. So then as the utensils are draining, the water is dripping off and sitting in the bottom of this cup. No, like, honestly, if my stepmother saw the way that he was doing dishes, in fact, I would love for my stepmother, Stacy, if you ever see this, I would love for you to see the way that Chris does dishes, because it is pathetic. He's 57 years old. So I told my mother-in-law, I don't want him doing dishes anymore, because he doesn't get them clean. He puts them away. You can still feel grease on them. And he uses cups as drainers. The cup isn't effectively not getting clean because you're using it as a silverware drainer. Anyway. So, the reason I got really quiet was they had pulled in. Mind you, they'd been gone all day. Remember I said my mother-in-law doesn't like to stay home. So, and I heard them chit-chatting all day. Or when they were getting up to it, because our daughter, around the 2:30, 3 o'clock a.m. hour, was in the bathroom getting sick. So I kept her home from school because I wasn't going to send her to school if she had been puking. And our bedroom is right outside the bathroom, so I heard everything that was happening in the bathroom this morning. And when she was done, she came out and woke me up and goes, I just got sick. To which, mind you, I forgot about when my 6 o'clock alarm went off. And I went to go wake her up for school, and then she reminded me, I'm not going to school today. I got sick, remember? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So I called her in. Mind you, their school is not going to be happy about it, but I called her in. I don't care. If she's throwing up, I'm not going to send her to school. So I went back to bed because essentially if she doesn't have to be up for school, I'm not going to get up at 6 a.m. and start my day. It's just not going to happen. So it's about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and my mother-in-law and her boyfriend, they start waking up and getting ready for their day. Well, I hear them talking because they don't know how to be quiet. They think they do, but they don't. Well, my mother-in-law is in the kitchen, and she's got, she's, telling her boyfriend, well, I'm going to clean. So she cleaned the bathroom this morning. And then they were saying how she had to go clean clean Aunt Barb's house. Aunt Barb is the aunt of the daughter of the friend's husband. So my mother-in-law, Pauline, has a friend named Donna. Donna's daughter, Amelia, her husband, it's his aunt that is getting her house cleaned every week by my mother-in-law. So not only did my mother-in-law have to go clean this Aunt Barb's house, but her boyfriend had a doctor's appointment this afternoon. So they went to clean this lady's house. Then they went to his doctor's appointment. And I guess she had to work today because they just got home. She went inside to get her stuff, probably go to the bathroom, because she's working overnight. And he brought a box of dishes out. The dishes that I thought she said she was putting away for Willie and I when we found our own house. Because she brought, somehow, I don't know where they found this. I don't know if they found it at Goodwill or what, but she got more dishes from somewhere, and she swapped the dishes that were originally there for the new ones that she found and put them in a box and was gonna, I guess, apparently take them to work. Well, if you were gonna take them to work, then you should have been taking them to work all along, but no, this box of dishes has been sitting in the kitchen for weeks. But anyway, this whole box of dishes just wound up going to her work. Remember, I told you she works for a privately funded assisted living group home company. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't know if anybody who works for the company has a YouTube and is following me. But anyways, yeah, enjoy the dishes that are getting put in that house. They were dishes that came from our house. The other thing that I wanted to kind of discuss in this video, and I'm still weary as to how to approach this subject, is the subject of my biological dad and my stepmother. I have not spoken to either of them in any sense of the word or any fashion since we left North Carolina in April. Growing up, my dad, I should say. My dad was in the military for, my goodness, 15, 16 years, I think. And so we moved around a lot. Like, I don't think during his time in the military, I don't think I was ever in one school for more than 6 months. If that. So when my dad finally got out of the military, he and my mom decided to settle in Kenosha, Wisconsin. While we were living in Kenosha, my dad started chatting with this woman online. And this woman that he was chatting with later turned into my stepmom, and I'll get to that shortly, so just bear with me. He met her online in some type of chat room, and she convinced him to move our entire family, so myself, my mom, my dad, our cats, my brother, and my sister, move everybody from Kenosha, Wisconsin to North Carolina. I don't remember what part of North Carolina she was living in at the time, but I do remember that she was married as well as my dad. So they, essentially what had happened is the two of them started an online affair, and she convinced my dad to move his entire family from Wisconsin to North Carolina so that they could take the affair from just online to physical. Essentially, and this whole thing was happening for years. I remember when my dad and my mom and us 3 kids finally moved out of my stepmom and her husband's house at the time. We moved into a trailer in Roxborough, North Carolina. I think we moved from Durham to Roxborough. I think Stacy and her husband, Mark, were living in a trailer in Roxborough at the time. Or no, Durham at the time. Sorry, Durham. So, our family of 5 moved from their trailer in Durham to another trailer in Roxborough. And while we were living in Roxborough, my mom had gotten a job at Family Dollar. My dad started working for the police department of Duke University. And my dad was continuing to see Stacy behind my mom's back. To the point where she ended up getting pregnant with my now 22 and a half, almost 23-year-old little brother. There is 15 years in between me and the youngest of my siblings. Okay? He broke the news to us after we came home from school one day. And not only did he tell us that my stepmom was pregnant, he told us that he was leaving our mother and that he didn't love her anymore, and that was that. He made us dinner, he helped us with our homework, which was very uncharacteristic of my dad, and that should have been my first tall tale that something was up. But yeah, he packed his bags and he left, and he didn't even have the nerve or the balls. Let me just put it out there like it is. He didn't have the balls to tell his wife of 16 years that he was leaving her for another woman whom he had gotten pregnant. Nope. He left that to me. And you want to know how old I was at the time? I was 12 years old. 12 years old. So I called my mom at work and I said, you need to come home and you need to come home now. She said, what's wrong? I said, Dad just left. She goes, what do you mean he left? I said, he left. He packed his bags and said he was moving in with Stacy and he left. And she came home saw that I wasn't kidding, called her coworker from Family Dollar and crying and said, he just left me. And she came over and they started throwing his stuff out on the front lawn. And then so they filed for divorce. And my mom called her parents, who live in Lake Villa. In fact, my mom just told me that house is going up on the market. That to me is so strange that I will never again visit any family at that house because it's going on the market. Like my grandfather passed away in 2018. My grandmother, essentially she's in a new relationship and she's living with her boyfriend somewhere in Wisconsin. I don't know. And so right now it's just my uncle living in the house, and I guess he has plans to sell it. Which is just so bizarre to me that that's not going to be my grandparents' house anymore. Yeah, it's just kind of weird. So anyway, but we ended up moving from my mom and us 3 kids. Because my mom had gotten sole physical custody of the 3 of us, and my dad would get visitation. He would get 6 weeks every summer, and then every other Christmas we would go down and spend that Christmas with him. But we ended up moving from North Carolina to my grandparents' house, and then from my grandparents' house, my mom found an apartment in Lake Villa, not that far from my grandparents' house, actually, that she and the 3 of us kids moved into. And then, so while we were living in that apartment, my mom met somebody and married him. No, it is not my stepdad that I keep referring to, that she's with now, that she's been with for the past 10 years. No. This guy was a complete piece of work. His name, ironically, was also John, but it was spelled John. She married him on a whim, purely so that she would have health insurance, and I will never forget this. So I got really sick in 8th grade, and I was hospitalized, and on one of the days of hospitalization, they wanted to run a test under sedation. Well, I don't do very well with sedation, with coming out of it. I end up getting very sick, and it can be a very violent experience. So, and I couldn't get a hold of her to be like, hey, they're wanting to do this test and they want to put me under anesthesia. I need somebody here. They were getting married that day because my mom, her health insurance was going to lapse. So that relationship fizzled out, and I actually ended up, I had arranged with my dad and my stepmom for my custody, my custody arrangement to switch from my mom to my dad, because I did not like my stepdad. He was very, very abusive, very controlling. And when I say abusive and controlling, the 3 of us kids were not allowed to contact our dad unless he or my mom was present. We weren't allowed to mail our dad any mail, so like postcards, letters, Christmas cards, anything like that, unless we snuck out of the house at night to go drop it in the mailbox down the street. My mom and my stepdad, because I was 16 at the time, had given me my own phone in my room. But it was for local calls only, so I couldn't do any long distance calls. The only way that I could call my dad on my phone, I had to make a collect call. You remember 1-800-COLLECT? I had to make a collect call. He would refuse the charges and call me back. I could receive incoming long distance, but I couldn't make outgoing. So we had arranged, we went to court over one summer, and petitioned to have my custody arrangement switched from my mom to my dad. And I'll never forget the day that he called me and told me he won. Because he calls me and I'm like, hello? And he doesn't even say hello. He just says, I won. And I said, you won? You won what? Like, you won a ticket to Disney? You know, he's like, the judge came back and agreed to switch your custody. And I hadn't even told my mom that this is what we were doing. I don't remember how she found out. I think she found out when she got papers in the mail stating that custody of me had reverted back to my dad. And the day he took custody of me was actually the day that I had one of my largest leg surgeries. And that day was like horrible because, so I don't like having surgery under any circumstances for whatever reason. And when I was laying there in the hospital, but I was laying there freaking out. Mind you, I'm dehydrated, I'm hungry because they want you fasting from midnight. So after midnight, I wasn't allowed to have anything to eat or drink. So, you know, I'm starving, I'm thirsty. They're sticking me to start IVs. I have an anesthesiologist who's coming in, and because I don't look like, size-wise, I don't look like my age. I look a lot younger than I actually am. As you can see, even though chronologically I'm 37, physically I look like a 21-year-old. So the anesthesiologist comes in, takes one look at me, doesn't even look at the birth date on the chart, and he goes, we're going to have to give her an SHOT. Like, what? You do realize I'm not some little kid who can't understand what you're talking about. I know how to spell. And at that, he's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize she was that old. I'm like, my mom's like, look at her chart. Dude, she's 12 years old. Look at her chart. Or, no, she's 16. Look at her chart. So anyway, so I have the surgery. And I found out after the fact my dad and my stepdad at the time had gotten into it because my stepdad made the mistake of telling, I was crying, right? I was crying and I was scared, and I just had this anesthesiologist, spell out the word shot, thinking I was stupid. And he tells me to shut up. While I'm laying there in a hospital bed getting prepped for a major leg surgery. In front of my mom and my dad and my uncles and my grandfather. Told me to shut up. Found out after the fact that my dad and my stepdad had some words. Yeah. Anyway, so custody reverted to my dad. I had gone, after surgery, I'd gone with my dad back to North Carolina after the 6-week post-op mark. Because, you have your doctor's appointments following surgery once you're discharged. And moved in with my dad and my stepmom and my little brother, who at this point was like 3. Three or 4, because I was down there when he started preschool. And it's so funny because, yeah, he had to have been 3, because I was a sophomore in high school, and because I had a reverse K walker, so my stepmom would take me to school every day because I had to take this walker with me. And so they would take me into English class, and he would walk into English class wearing his Elmo sweatshirt. And my teachers thought that he was just the cutest little sucker. And of course, I mean, he was like cute as a button at 4. Now he's like tall and muscular and beastie. Love him to death. I miss him bunches. Miss you, Michael, if you happen to ever catch this. I miss you bunches. But I was down there from the time that I was a sophomore in high school till my junior year, about midway through my junior year. And I left because my stepmom's way of punishing is very utilitarian, and she relies a lot on spanking and wanting to restrict from things and manual labor. And it wasn't anything that I said that caused this. It was purely because my grades were not the best. Nope. My grades were not the best in high school, which is so funny to me now, looking back on it, looking at what I'm pulling off now, because the official grade for diagnostic coding came back, y'all. And I have an A, or I got an A in that class, and I'm working on procedural coding now. In fact, I just finished. I have one more discussion reply to post for this week, which I'll probably post later on tonight. But then I'm all done for the week. And it's week 1. So, like, I posted a picture of my graduation countdown clock to my Snapchat stories. And I have 30 days until I graduate. Well, 29 technically, but as of yesterday, I have 30 days. Can you believe that? 30 freaking days. I'm so excited. But, yeah. So I think I'm going to end this one here. Maybe do some karaoke. You guys have any questions? Drop them in the comments. I'm an open book. I don't hide anything. That's why I put this stuff out here, because I'm tired of keeping it all in. This is part of the reason why I am the way I am. And I just feel I need an out, and I'm part of one of those families where it's considered taboo to discuss openly what you're feeling. And I know that sounds so weird in this day and age, but that's how they were raised. Like, my husband and his siblings were raised, you don't talk about your feelings. My siblings were raised, you don't talk about your feelings. I'm one of those people that if I keep too much bottled in without giving it away to let it go, then it festers and it bubbles and I think about it and I can't, my mind says, nope, that's not how this is going to work. So this is why I started this channel. So I will see you guys next Monday. I'm not going to record anything tomorrow or Sunday because it's the weekend and I kind of just want to decompress and relax. So I will see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. There's nothing that I won't answer. And if it is something that I don't feel comfortable answering, I will let you know. Bye, guys.